welcome back to the channel. In my last writing video, I shared with you all of the reasons why I switched from Scrivener after using it for years over to Ellipsis. Today, I'm going to walk you through what I call my writer's sanctuary in my Notion hub and show you the second writing tool that is going to set me up for success, not just in the plotting and the planning of the novel, but also in the drafting and revising stages as well. Here is the writer's sanctuary, the Notion dashboard that I built. I did not create all of this from scratch by myself. There are a bunch of free templates just like this one that you can find on Notion. I merged this Studio Ghibli expanded template with another template to make what you're seeing on the screen. Definitely check out the amazing work of these artists if you're interested in creating something like this for yourself. Okay, let's jump to the top. We've got my navigation pane. In the center here, I put my current projects. Book 1, I know that it's in edits. This is the details of the book, about how many words. Book 2, same deal. It's a good way for me on this single landing page to know exactly the projects that I'm working on, where I am, how many words there are. All of the details are right here on the homepage, so I don't need to go hunting and pecking for all of the projects that I'm working on. They're right here, center screen. On the right-hand side, we've got my inspiration corner. That's really just a Spotify playlist. Would you expect anything different? I've also got a Pinterest board. If there are templates or pages within this hub that require a database or that have an inline database, these are essentially the feed-in databases. Where the template word count tracker exists, this is the literal database that feeds into that tracker. But maybe on that page, I've got other things above and below this actual database. I wanted a place where I could quickly find all of my database links, so that's here. Obviously, all the cute little images. I've got an idea bank as well, and this is where I put any name ideas that I have, country ideas that I have. I always think of names. I'm always hearing a name, watching TV, and I'm like, come across a name and I want to write it down. This is a one-stop shop for me as I hear character names, country names, and then new story ideas. There is a story prompt collection, which I did not create this myself. This was a part of the template that I downloaded in case you need some inspiration. There's some story prompts included in this view. Wouldn't it be a cool book that starts with, in a world where everyone has a birth star? Can't you just imagine the premise of a book like that? I think it would be so cool. Or if everybody was literally a star. So if I've got some story ideas that are loose or based on a phrasing that I heard, I'll put that in the idea bank. My next story idea, these are still in the works. On the right-hand side, there's name generators, fantasy name generators, random stuff on the internet that you can certainly Google just in case I need even more ideas to add to the idea bank. All artwork, etc., were drawn by this person. I merged the speculative pages template and the Studio Ghibli template, and then I customized it all and made it work for me. To reiterate, I did not do all of this on my own. Back to the homepage in the sanctuary. If I'm on my phone, on my iPad, on the go, and I come up with a story idea or something I want to explore later, this is a button. If you click the button, it loads the template. Test for the channel. And if I go back to my idea bank, once it loads, you see now I have test for the channel or whatever that new story idea would be. If I open it up in the center pane, the same details that we just walked through are here. So I like that because it's a very quick and easy way to jot down some story ideas. For now, I'm going to delete this so that I don't get confused. References and research section. If you know me, you know I love Brandon Sanderson. So this is literally all the writing advice compiled. I think it's on his website. Yeah, this is his website. So it's a link to all of his writing advice. This is a platform, like a co-work platform I wanted to explore, and I don't want to lose sight of it. So it really doesn't belong here, but I want to consider downloading on together, and then you and I can get some writing done together, but in a different platform that's different than me like posting a body doubling. If you would be interested in that, leave a comment down below. Definitely a little bit more like real time. Let me know what works for you and what works best for you to get some words down on the page. I think that's everything on the home page. So let's jump into the planning templates, and then I'll jump into the drafting templates. So for me, two separate things are your planning stage. So you're plotting your ideas, figuring out your world. Is this a viable story idea? And then you've got your drafting, where all the resources that you might need to actually start getting words on a page. In the planning templates, we've got a character profile. Again, did not create this. I got this out of a free template. And you can kind of see this person put all of these pictures and all of these characters. You can look at it by list. You can see all of the different detailed and tags related to each of these characters. It's super, super detailed. By status, let's say I started fleshing out somebody already, or I finished. We can move maybe this person to complete. Very easy to use. So that's a template that I have then adjusted. You'll see it in this Phantom Rising and Edits page for my own characters, but it's a template that I think is very easy to use. It's reusable. I can copy, paste, duplicate depending on the project and go from there. The next template that I got from this same author, the same artist, creator, is the timeline of events. Here's an overview tab. This is all the events that they had, the description, when it happened, what era. It's very fantasy coded for sure. All of the details around the story impact, what characters are involved. You can link them in terms of your character profiles and your timeline of events. You can actually link those two things so that they appear in each other's database. And then there's images. If you wanted like an actual timeline, you could scroll back and see that. Age and era view, story impact view, etc. So these are some templates that I wanted to include and keep on the homepage. In terms of drafting, I created what I am calling an interiority thesaurus because I find that especially when I write in first person POV, it can be quite challenging to get all of your characters' internal thoughts, internal dialogue on the page without feeling info dumpy. You want to convey what they're feeling and thinking without it taking up pages and pages. Let's pick an easy one. If my main character is under attack, for example, and I got this specific idea, I can tend to go off on like down rabbit holes. Stay with me. So I was watching Demon Slayer, one of my top animes. I'm obsessed. I love it so much, would recommend. Okay, the main character who, when he is often in a fighting scene, either with a demon or somebody else, he's got a very strong internal dialogue or interiority. He will think, we as the viewer hearing him say things like, move now, don't hesitate, push forward, hit hard, this is my window, right? All of these sorts of thoughts that your character will have internally, those are things that need to be on the page. While I don't necessarily struggle in every single one of these scenarios, I think some of these I'm a little bit better at than others in terms of conveying it on the page, especially I think self-doubt, insecurity, asking questions, being quite introspective. I would say those are things that I can get on the page quite easily. Maybe survival instincts or vulnerability or things that I need more help with. I literally went through all the emotions I could think about, all of the scenarios. If I was doing any sort of internal dialogue, what are some things I can pull from? What are some ideas? Some little phrases I can pepper in. How do I tailor all of these examples to my actual character? And then I love a good romance. I love a good romance subplot, especially in fantasy. So I created what I'm calling the add-on romance edition, which is not comprehensive because obviously we're missing whatever the B category would be. But if they're surprised by their attraction, maybe this is something that they say together, or sorry, maybe this is something that they say in their head, pull it together. This shouldn't be happening. I can't believe I'm attracted to him. Why are his eyes drawing me in? Whatever the scenario is, there's a romance edition that I started to flesh out as well. I did the grumpy sunshine. If you have characters that fall into those tropes, maybe these are the things that they would be thinking internally. So I think you get the point. This is my thesaurus that I built for myself. It's quite extensive, but I find, especially in revising phases, it can really help me, or honestly, even in drafting, get out onto the page what my character is feeling in a way that actually relates to the scenario or the situation that they're in or the feeling that they're feeling. And then I have a scene card template, which honestly, I'm continuing to tweak almost every single time I jump into it, but these are questions I want to ask myself to determine if my scene actually earns its place in my story. If the viewpoint character or POV, your MC, what do they want at the start of the scene? Do they get that by the end of the scene? What complicates them or puts a wrench in their plans in that scene? What are the consequences of the actions that they take in that scene? Does the scene move your plot forward? Does the scene help your readers understand your character better? Does this scene push the story forward, or is this scene something that can be removed altogether? Would your story continue to move forward if you literally took this scene out of your book and continued forward? I like to have these questions here in terms of an audit by scene, and then I created a scene card template. Use your resources, y'all. I did merge a scene card template that I got from Abby Emmons as well as Golden May I went to this free workshop that they did, and I essentially merged those two resources together to create a scene card template that works for me. Whatever writing tool you choose, whatever resources you use, it's got to work for you. Just because somebody else pantses or plots or flies by the seat of their pants or whatever doesn't mean that's going to work for you. Just because you download a template from Notion and click through it doesn't mean that's going to work for you, right? So I'm really big on customizing and tailoring my tools and my resources to work with my brain, the way that I think, the way that I draft, the way that I need my inspiration, the way that I need to plan things. You've got to use your tools. You've got to make sure that your tools work for you. You can kind of see as I'm thinking about each element of a scene, these are the things that I personally want to make sure that I am fleshing out as I go. Then the last drafting template we've got is if I wanted to track writing sessions. I don't know if I'm going to use this per se, but it was a part of the free template that I had downloaded previously. Remember, I was showing you that database in addition to this database, and you can see there's a little diagonal upwards arrow, which means it's a link to the database that exists, as opposed to the screen that I showed you before. Literally the only thing on that page was the word count tracker. So you can kind of see the layout there. If I was doing revisions, here's a way that I could track that in Notion. So I think that's everything in terms of our main page and our templates. If I dive into my world building, you'll see here, again, cannot say it enough. I did not create all of this myself. I absolutely used existing templates. I recently watched The Secret World of Ariadne and I loved it, so I wanted to put some images here. I absolutely customized this very, very extensive world building template by Quill and Steel. And they even have this little watermark or something down here. I don't know, whatever this is called, copyright, whatever. And they've got a lot more resources. I took what was free, I customized it to my needs, and then I started to go through the world building for my novel. Let's go back to the top. I needed to do a lot of fleshing out in terms of my world building. There were certain things about my magic system, certain things about literally the geography of my continent and the kingdom and those sorts of things that I needed to add more details. And I wanted something that was like a fresh set of eyes, in the sense of I was definitely not asking myself all of these questions when I wrote the first or second or third draft of this book. I was creating the world in my mind's eye as I went, but this is a world that I can really see a universe. I could see 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 novels set in the same universe, but maybe with different characters in different nations, different countries. It's one of the first worlds that I can really see in my mind's eye. And I want the reader to love it as much as I do. So how do I make that happen? Thinking through in a little bit more detail some of the elements of the world. I don't know that we'll go through everything, but it walks you through your first part, which is your world foundation. Before diving into complex details, establish your world's core identity, answer these questions quickly, and don't overthink it. You can also see that I'm debating on how to spell the name of my empire, my continent. So it's called Ellesmere. So if any of you have any suggestions on the best, easiest way to spell it, so you're not making up vowels and words in your head as you read it because you don't really know how to pronounce it, whatever spelling you feel would be the easiest to pronounce for Ellesmere, please, I am more than happy to take your suggestions in the comments. This was an example of a core concept. It's a world where magic is powered by emotions and kingdoms war over ancient mood crystals. That's super interesting. So that was what the Quill and Steel creator had included in the template as an example. Here's my world overview. So it is a unified kingdom. It has 5 distinct resource-driven states. There is a capital district called Kefia. That's where the monarch and the royal palace exist. There's also an elite magical academy. It's a 2-year academy that my main character will go through. My magic system is born or bargain. So you're either born with magic, in which case you're called a gemborn, or you are not born with the ability to do magic. So that's an innate ability to do magic, in which case you've got a bargain, which I love the concept and I'm really excited. And I really hope that it will come across on the page when the time comes. But essentially you can bargain for certain things. If you do not have magic, you are called a hollow. And about 60% of my nation, continent's population that don't have magic innately, and then about 40% that do. Magic is not a secret. So you can go through and think about the big broad strokes in terms of your world. What is your main conflict? So in book 1, will my main character Onyx graduate from this magical elite academy and become a Kyrie apprentice and follow in her mother's footsteps? That's my story problem from beginning to end. That's the question that I need to answer. The tone and the mood of the book, any technology level. I do like the fact that this is clickable. But this is called a to-do. If you see here where it says to-do list in Notion, because that's the formatting of it. When you check it, it like crosses it out as if it was a completed item on a to-do list, which is fine. But I do honestly struggle a little bit when I check it. It makes it look like that's not it. Like the strike through to me makes it seem like that's not a part of the story as opposed to it being a part of the story. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. You can tell me if it's just me, but I checked the things or tried to check the things that I felt like were related to my story. Part two talks about a power structure. Mine is a monarchy. How does that affect your characters? Part three is all about geography. This is a database for, we can do Archon Academy, which is the magical academy that Onyx and her peers will go through for 2 years. Here's like the general population. Here's the description of it. And same deal for some of the other. I wonder, I think I did this one. Yeah. So, what's the climate? What's the terrain? What's the biome? Which are different things, which I did not know until I started going through this and like Googling things for myself. What's the language of that nation? What are the factions that live there? I told you that my world is divided into 5 resource driven states. What's the specific resource for chessware? I really like this hometown 2 field. So, if you think about, okay, Dratham, whose hometown is that? My main character and her mom. What about Altbay? Whose hometown is that? Sailor Blackwood, who ends up being a really important secondary character in the book. So there's a lot of fields in here that I wanted to expand, and I'm still fleshing that out. To the right of that, I tried to put the timeline of events. This looks exactly like the template that we went through because I haven't actually completed it. But as I'm going through the world building and I come up with the timeline, there's a magical competition that Onyx needs to pass to graduate, and it's points based. I can flush out my timeline of events, and then this upwards diagonal arrow means it's linked to something else. So that's the middle section. If I had a map, I could put that here. If I click into this, this was another template that came in the Quill and Steel packet for free. So any images, any maps, you can upload here. I have not done that yet, but in this section, when I think about geography, it's all inclusive and it's pretty detailed. It asks you to walk through what is your starting location, what's the destination, what's the key features, why does it matter, this is the elite school, fill out that kind of stuff. Obstacle and challenge. I love this. It's a safe haven and rest location. So you know how a lot of times, especially in a lot of action ebooks, plots with lots of action, it just seems like a go-go back to back. Your characters are jumping from one danger to the next danger, and then they can catch their breath for 5 seconds, but then something comes out of the woods and attacks them, and they don't have time to catch their breath, and they get injured, and there's nowhere for them to go. If I think about the Fellowship of the Ring, Frodo and his friends ended up at that tavern where they meet Strider. And that to me would be like a safe haven or a rest location. They weren't there for long, but they were able to get food, maybe change their clothes, take a shower. I do appreciate that the template came with this because it gives me a chance to think about the good time, place to pepper in some of these safe havens to give a character a natural resting point, a natural resting place, so that they're not always jumping from obstacle to obstacle. I fleshed out some things in terms of transportation. The template gave a character archetype to use as starting points. I also put in my book 1 character profiles here because I wanted it here in the world building section. You've seen it before in a different view, but this is the table view. And we can certainly jump into that in a bit here, but these are the core fantasy archetypes. Here's some of the personality traits you could pick as you go through. What are their flaws, their motivations? In the template that I downloaded, there is even more that you can connect together. If I wanted the full version, that's here. Starter questions. I've answered some of those about my magic system. This is my born or bargain system, all of my magical disciplines. Then it walks through your first chapter checklist, things to do and not to do, and then next steps, writing your first scene, keeping a world building notebook for any ideas that come while you're drafting writing on the train, commuting to work, finding a writing community, which my corner of the internet is a writing community. So if you want to see more, write with me, body doubling, we want to do some sprints together, you want to learn more about the tools that I'm using or the progress that I'm making on my novel, this is a community that you can take part in. I would love to have you. When you're ready to go deeper, it also walks you through some of the things that you could consider. Then it gives you some final thoughts at the end. The best fantasy worlds feel lived in and real, not like everything was created yesterday. Start with what you have here and then add details as your story demands them. Your world should serve your story, not the other way around. If a detail doesn't enhance your plot or your characters, you probably don't need it yet. Most importantly, start writing. Your world will become richer and more detailed through the act of storytelling. I completely agree, which is why I needed to double back to the world building. I really needed to get everything on the page and then figure out what I needed to flesh out, add, change. If we go back to the Writer's Sanctuary, we can go to Phantom Rising and Edits, which is book 1, and I've got a navigation pane here as well. Look at these cute little stamps I found, you guys. Aren't they so cute? This is the details around book 2. The most important thing on this page, other than the cute images, are 1, I link back to my world building, so that's the thing that we just went through. I went online, I had very specific qualities and characteristics in my mind's eye that I personally cannot draw or create myself. So I did use a free tool. I got a free trial and created these cool pictures. These are essentially all of my main characters, except for Khalil and Duke. They're going to be in book 2. But the headmistress of the school, you can see she's got some stuff, character basics, her appearance, her clothing. If we think about Amelia, who's one of the supporting characters, she's got spirit magic. This is the basics of her character. Captain Mira Rain becomes a very important character in book 2, but she's absolutely critical in book 1. She's a mentor to my main character, Onyx. She served with Mama in the Kyrie, so they were in the military together. So when she was in her 20s, maybe she looks like this. And you can zoom in and see. Isn't that pretty? Oh. So yes, I did not draw these. I did not create these. I spent a lot of time, hours and hours describing what I wanted. This is how I imagine Mira to look in her 20s as opposed to when Mira interacts with Onyx. So see, like, this is a good example. This was like a first draft or whatever that kind of spit out. And I was like, oh yeah, but like not quite there. And then we can also zoom into this one when Onyx interacts with Mira, because Mira and Onyx's mom were in the military together. This is Mira in her 40s. In book 1, when she is a character interacting and mentoring Onyx, this is what she looks like. And this is what I imagine she would be wearing. God, the hair, everything. It's just, she's beautiful. So I spent a lot of time in my character profiles creating images. This is an antagonistic professor. If you're familiar with Avatar, you will know where I got the name Sato. But yeah, I'm going to say the 9 most important characters in book 1. And you can see all of the tags here in terms of their role in the story, if they're gemborn or not. We talked about the timeline of events, but it's linked here. I haven't really started it or fleshed it out yet at all. And then if I scroll down, this is really, I'm not going to say the most important part, but I'm going to say like the main event of this landing page, if you will. So I'm really big on plotting, beat sheets, scene cards, and because I've spent a significant amount of time in this novel already, and I'm really trying to build, it's not a prequel anymore. What I thought would be the prequel is actually turning out to be book 1. So there's a lot that I need to flesh out. I do combine a couple of methods and approaches to plotting. I use Jessica Brody's Save the Cat. She came out with a novel called Save the Cat Writes a Young Adult Novel, and I found that specific version really helped me because I write young adult. And I combined Hero Adventure, if you've heard of that plotting style, and some of the other ones out there. There is so much out there for us, and I love that. I love that. I think that it can be a bit overwhelming, which is why I wanted to create my own Notion dashboard. I wanted to create my own sanctuary, my own space, customized to me, tailored to my needs, my style. And it's a tool that works with my brain and works with the way that I think and the way that I approach storytelling. So I did absolutely merge a bunch of approaches to create my own. It's a beat sheet, a plot board. You might have seen people have like cork boards with post-its. This is my digital version of that. I have everything from the ordinary world. I've got a box for B story. I've got my aha moment, my dark night of the soul. All of these story beats and scenes that have little stars are what I call my tentpole scenes. When you think about drafting a novel, which let me know if you think it would be helpful to dive into this in more detail because I'm literally doing this in real time. But my tentpole scenes or story beats are milestones along the way. So If I know that I have those, I know that I can eventually build around them and fill out this entire map. My tentpole scenes or story beats are the inciting incident, the lock-in, the midpoint climax, the dark night of the soul, and the third act twist. So that's why those have stars on them. And a lot of these are honestly pretty empty. So if I click into All is Lost, I put a goal. There is a template that I use. They included some questions and some action items. This is a template that I made. We talked about my scene card template. If I click this button, it literally automatically pops out with the scene card. I would do full page view. If I was working on All is Lost, I would come in here, I would say in progress. I would get reminded of what the goal of this plot point is. This is the story question that I want to make sure to keep in mind as I'm drafting it. Sort is eventually when I want to rearrange my story beats. I'll have an order for myself. Whatever the goal of the scene is, I would obviously change this. This would probably be Act 3, scene whatever. And then scene synopsis, I would write here general synopsis of what happens in the scene. And same questions, same check marks, same style of the scene card template that we went through in the templates section in the homepage of the hub. How much time has passed between the last scene beat and this one? Great, 5 days. What does your hero want in this scene? X, Y, and Z. How does Onyx intend to achieve that? 1, 2, and 3. What is the tie-in to Onyx's internal goal at this point in the story? There would also be an obvious tie to the external goals, the internal plot or the internal story, and then the external plot or the external story. What is the unexpected conflict, disturbance, or obstacle that happens that gets in the way of Onyx getting what she wanted? After that, how does she pivot and come up with a new goal? How does the disturbance get more complicated? What's the turning point in the scene? As I am drafting a scene, I would come in, I would actually put ellipsis on a pane, which one of y'all gave me the suggestion to do this, so I really appreciate you. I would use Mac. I don't know if it's called magnet feature, but Notion would appear here with my scene card. Ellipsis would appear here in a different pane. I could see them side by side, which is one of the things I mentioned in my last video that I really miss about Scrivener, but it's a good hacky workaround for now. And if I need to make edits, Notion is automatically saving in real time as I'm drafting in ellipsis in this scene. I can go back and tweak the scene card based on what I've drafted. So there's a lot of possibilities, lots of options, but that's how the beat sheet would work. If I want to move some things around, I can remove my sorting. Look at how easy this is. It's a really nice digital corkboard, and I really like it. So let me actually make sure I move stuff back. Midpoint goes before this, reward, campfire, all is lost, back, guys, close it in. Is this right, you guys? Give me a second. Okay, yes, so now they're back in order. Let's say I created a scene, especially in big chunks of your story. The ordinary world, there's going to be multiple scenes that make up multiple chapters that make up your ordinary world. So maybe I need to rearrange some scenes. Maybe they meet their roommates first and then they arrive to the school or whatever. So I like this view and this tool and this formatting because it's really easy for me to literally shift scenes and shift story elements around as I go. So that's good in plotting, that's good in drafting, that's good in revising, that's good in post. A lot of good applications for a corkboard or a digital storyboard, if you will. So that's the main section of my Phantom Rising and edits. Finally, I will leave you with these 3 overarching resources or reminders that I like to use. I personally draft my story using the 3-act story structure. If you've not heard of that, you can Google it. I wanted to walk through and remind myself of, in Act 1, you're essentially setting up your story. Act 1 takes up about 25% of your book. Here are the important things that you should be doing in Act 1. Introducing your protagonist. So if your main character is not being introduced until 15 pages in, you might want to rethink your opening pages. You might want to rethink the beginning of your story, because one of the most important parts about the first act is introducing your main character to the reader. So you want to make sure that you're hooking your reader, describing your ordinary world, setting up any foreshadowing, any stakes, establishing what your character wants. So I really love the phrasing en medias res, which I'm probably pronouncing very wrong. En medias res. It's Latin, I think, but it means in the middle of. Whenever I start a story, my character existed before me, Jordan, me, myself, and I put them on the page. So before you, the reader, were introduced to Onyx, she had a whole life. She's had 16, 17, 18, 19 years under her belt before we meet her. We're literally meeting her in the middle of her life, experiences that have shaped her life and molded the way that she thinks about the world and impacted her worldview. And she's already made some friends and she has a personality. Having all of that in the back of my mind, my characters have all lived a life before we meet them, establishing empathy for your protagonist, which I find interesting. I don't always think that my characters need to be likable. If you read my stuff, I don't always need you to be like, wow, I really like Onyx. I love her. She's such a good person. I don't know that every character in a story necessarily needs to be likable. And that's why I think the phrasing morally gray comes into play. Sometimes people do bad things for good reasons. Sometimes you might find that a character is kind of insufferable, but they have a really good character transformation by the end of the story. So, would I love all of you to love and like Onyx? Yeah, 100%. But maybe you think she's a brat. Maybe you think she's super spoiled. Maybe in the first half of the book, you're like, God, I really don't like this character at all. That's okay. Everyone's entitled to their own interpretation and their own experience with the character and with the world. But being able to establish who the character is in Act 1, what they want, a little bit about the life that they've lived. When you move into Act 2, that's essentially the big chunks of your novel. Your protagonist's reaction to whatever happens at your inciting incident. They've got a new goal. They don't necessarily need to be a hero at this point in the story. I call it Act 2, Part 1. And then you move to Act 2, Part 2, which is essentially the midpoint of your story. Whatever they wanted at the beginning of the story, they get that by the midpoint. Except they'll come to the realization that's not exactly everything that they thought that it was. All that glitters is not gold. It's a false win at the midpoint, and then Act 3 is resolution. Your protagonist is the hero of the story. They summon their courage and growth to come up with solutions and solve their problems and overcome their obstacles, conquer the antagonistic force. Everything that you've foreshadowed or anything that requires a payoff needs to come into play by the end of the book. Anything that needs to be wrapped up, loose ends tied, all that stuff happens in Act 3. I really don't love Deus Ex Machina, which to me, if I remember correctly, means at the end of the book, there's an adult that comes and saves the day. That's the simplest way that I can describe it. And I don't love that. I do know that there's a time and a place to use a device like that, but ideally, I try not to use that if I can help it. I try to have my characters either by themselves or on a team solve the thing and get to the win. I don't love when this big force comes, or because they're teens, this adult or professor comes and has the exact power that they need to solve the problem and they come right on time. I don't love that as a plot device. Lastly, on the right hand side here, I put a story beat calculator. I need to go back in my notes and figure out what sequence everything falls in, because this is definitely incorrect. This is the plot point about what percentage they should fall in the story. It's not 100% accurate. Your story does not need to be prescriptive. Mine certainly will not be. If I get to 68,000 words out of a 100,000 word novel and my all is lost is not in that section, it's not going to break the story. But I like these because tent poles, milestones, guardrails, they allow you to put some parameters around your storytelling and make sure that you're not introducing your character too late. The midpoint comes at the midpoint of your story, not 75% of the way in. So it helps translate the story beats into a calculator of sorts and helps me figure out and remember where each story beat belongs in the story, whether that's from a word count perspective or a percentage perspective. I think that's everything, y'all. I hope that you enjoyed this tour of my Notion hub, my writer's sanctuary. Let me know if you want to continue along the journey with me as I get into my story beats and my scene cards. If you just want more silent body doubling time, you can let me know that too. Until next time, keep it cozy.